Reish had a bit of a sleepless night,
Uh-oh.
and I'm okay. Extra makeup today, extra coffee, girl power coffee. It's one of these parenting things that parents across the board will relate to, even non-parents. We all know what sleepless nights are like. This one in particular was about my son.
Mm.
And, you and I share something that comes out in little pieces on the show, but we've never had an episode to just talk about the fact that we have sons with disabilities. That's something that you and I share. Tell us about your son, Reish.
I do. Before I get there, I do want to say one thing, and this is something I actually learned from you and from other guests we've had in the past. So I don't use the word disabilities. I use either the special needs, extra needs, typical, atypical. Only because, as I bang the microphone.
Hammer that point home, Reish.
Only because I have in listening in other people, and absolutely not from you. You're one of the most uplifting people I've ever known. But in other individuals, it seems like that term disability, I don't know, it seems to draw some negative connotation to it. So even my daughter's godmother, who has a son with special needs, she even really brought it to my forefront when she said, "I say differently able," but I'm like, okay, and then we talked about it some more. But anyway, I digress.
What's so interesting, and we'll come back to our original topic in a moment, but what's so interesting is we could do a series of podcasts on just this topic because Colin, our 16-year-old, he's my fiance's son, so my soon-to-be stepson.
Yep.
He went through a training not that long ago, a couple months ago, where it actually was it was provided by a nonprofit in Michigan, really amazing organization. They provide so much education and resources that we need. But it talked about how we actually, this was their stance, we should be talking about it specifically about and using the word disability and not sugarcoating it. And I know I stopped what I was doing. Colin was actually in this like Zoom webinar, and I stopped what I was doing nearby to listen in because I was like, wait a minute. Until then, I'd been calling it, like when I would talking conversationally, I'd say Colin has special needs. When I would talk to him, I would talk about his strengths and weaknesses. And so it caught me off guard. So I've been actually trying to incorporate the word disability more into my conversations with him in an effort. Their stance is it's an effort to normalize it and to help them. For Colin specifically, he doesn't understand his disabilities, which I don't blame him. I don't fully understand his disabilities, but if you ask him if he has a disability, he will tell you no. He will use words like, no, I'm normal, I'm like everybody else. You'll ask him, like, how do you do in school? Oh, I'm great. Colin is a 16 and a half year old. He's a sophomore in high school. He has been diagnosed with borderline cognitive impairment. Figuring out what that means. It's a new diagnosis as of a year ago. He has a low IQ, very difficult thing to talk about or to hear about your child. He presents, if you meet him, you will think, oh, that kid is nice, he's kind. You'd think he's normal. He comes across as somewhat neurotypical. It's only in deeper conversations. He's very good at masking. He has learned what to say as proper responses. But if you dig down even just a little bit, he doesn't actually know what his responses mean or even what the questions mean. So it's a very difficult thing to navigate. So for him to even understand that he has a disability, anyway, so
yeah, okay,
yeah,
we'll see. Once again,
so, I don't know.
You go.
We don't know what the right way to word it.
Maybe
our guests today will have an idea of what to word it. But tell us about your son, because let's give a little background on your son.
13, and when we air this, will be 13, and he is considered high functioning on the autism spectrum and ADHD. And so for him, again, an individual where you meet them and everything seems, honky-dory, typical kid, until you get into conversation. He struggles with social interaction. And what I mean by that is he does not get, or he is trying to learn, understand social cues. He really struggles with social cues. So you're having a
That's what kept
conversation.
us up last night.
Right. You're having a conversation with him, or it's a group discussion, and let's say a person is no longer interested. You and I would have a conversation, or have 3 or 4 people in a conversation. When you turn away, you are no longer communicating that you're listening to me. My son's reaction to that person turning away is, I don't know if he does it as much anymore, but he would either just raise his voice, because clearly you turned your head because you just can't hear him, or get up and get in front of said person to continue. So there's been that, and now we have that mixed in with puberty coming into play. He's got emotions that he does not understand, but I can say that he is and I'm grateful for this. He does have an understanding that he is autistic, and he shares that, and he says that to people. But in some of his lack of understanding of certain things, he'll jump to that, which it took us a long time to tell him, to give him said label. Like, he knew he had an IEP, he knew he had, was getting pulled out of class for certain things. We never put the label on it, because my son does tend to lean in to certain label. So I didn't want him to do that. I wanted him to recognize. And so it's been an interesting journey. Absolutely. And it's unlike a child or an individual where it's a cane or hearing or eyes or something that you physically see, and it takes no issue whatsoever to make an accommodation, or say, let me get up and help you, or what have you. Someone who presents with neurotypical or atypical situations, it's a little bit different. People don't really necessarily know, well, what am I supposed to do with this, because they don't get it. Which is, so we could go on and on and on, but we have a guest to get into some of this.
We do. And you know what? This today is a safe space, whether you use the word disability, whether
Yep.
you hate the word disability and you use another term, it's all welcome here today, because there is hope. And today that hope is in the form of our guest. I can't wait to introduce you to a friend of mine who is changing the world with her business, and another new startup, a new sister company. And I think it's changing the world, not just for children and adults like our sons, but for all of us. So can't wait to dive in.
That's right. Let's get into it. Think Tank of 3 starts right now.
Welcome to the Think Tank of 3 podcast. I am Julie Holton, alongside my wonderful co-host, Reischea Canidate-Kapasouris.
We are so glad you're here. And let's just say, this episode, it's not just for parents and children with special needs. This is a conversation that we all need to have to help make this world just a better place in general, or at least make it a little bit easier for any and everyone to just navigate with more comfort.
Yes, comfort and kindness. Our third today. I cannot wait to introduce you to her. She is a former special education teacher turned startup founder, who may just be one of the most passionate founders that you will ever meet. Meegan Winters absolutely glows when she talks about her business. It's called Able Eyes, and now it has a sister company called Able View. But I'm not going to ruin that sparkle. Let's let Meegan show you herself. Welcome to the show, my friend. It's so good to see you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Meegan, before you tell us about Able Eyes itself, go ahead and tell us about your time as a teacher and what led to this idea.
Yeah, so as Julie mentioned, I was a special education teacher for many years. I taught students on the autism spectrum. The younger population, I typically was working with like 5 to 9-year-old children. I loved teaching. I loved it so much. But while I was teaching, I just identified a need in the world that wasn't being met. And so many of the families that I worked with, I was very close with the families that I worked with. And I just noticed that they weren't having the same types of experiences as other families or families that don't have children with disabilities. More often than not, they were staying home, or like dividing a family where dad takes siblings somewhere and mom stays home with child with autism, or dad stays home and mom goes to the grocery store. And so it was creating this divide in families. And then those families were also missing out on so many meaningful experiences in life. And so, like, for example, when we would go on a field trip with the classroom, I mean, almost always parents would say, "Oh, my child's never been to an apple orchard," or "Oh, my child's never been to a restaurant," or like it was always, there were always these firsts. And when we did that, we knew that we had to prepare. One of the common characteristics for a person on the spectrum, it's not across the board, but it's common to have difficulty with transitions or have a need for routine, like things being very, very structured. And when you do something out of routine, that can cause a lot of anxiety. So we would create social stories, which is like kind of like a book of like what to expect. We would, or that could be a video. We would create visual schedules, so like a list of the steps of what was going to happen. We would sometimes take pictures and take videos, and we would talk about it at circle time weeks in advance. And it was, I mean, it was a lot to prepare for something and reduce the anxiety for the kiddos. And no family has the capacity to do that. And
And
so,
just share, Megan, like to kind of show that like personal side of that. Like, so Reischea, when Meegan told me about how she would do this, I was like, oh my gosh, can you just come take care of my son at school? Because he so needed that when he was that, he still needs it now. I mean, just to give an example for those who maybe, I mean, like it seems like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. It's something new, and like here's how it impacts them. And Reischea, you can share how it impacts your son, but for Colin, I remember a couple of years ago, he went on a field trip to Greenfield Village. And, you know, it's this big place. There's a museum there. There are outdoor things to walk through. It takes you kind of back into time of what life was like for Henry Ford. And Colin focused his whole day on, or like whole morning, whole bus ride leading up to it, like, when is lunch? Are we eating? Where are we eating? Are we eating? And the anxiety that built for him, just not knowing what they were doing for lunch. I don't think he even really cared necessarily about lunch. He didn't really care what they were. He needed the structure. He needed the plan. And so instead of being able to take in all of the different activities, he just needed to know what the plan was for lunch. And his dad, who was on the trip with him, didn't know the plan for lunch. And so he has all these, he's trying to work around it and say, oh, it'll be okay. But that doesn't work when you are someone who just needs to know what that lunch is going to look like. And so even these things that might seem trivial to us are not trivial for someone who needs that structure and that routine. Reish, would you say it's probably similar? I don't know if it's like something like that for your son, but going to a new place.
It depends. So that, not so much. It used to be. It very much used to be. It very much was. He needed. I remember a situation with television, and he was watching whatever show, and my husband comes into the room, picks up the remote, and changes the channel. And while this actual response, I later was like, well, that's actually kind of typical, but it was, there was more to it for my son, because my son lost his marbles. And I remember looking at my husband, I'm like, why would you do that? He's like, well, I want to watch whatever I want. I said, okay, well, let me ask you, dear husband of mine, if you were watching something and I walked into the room and picked up the remote and changed the channel and sat down, you would not be thrilled with me. You're not going to throw a temper tantrum because you're an adult, but you'll probably have a word or two like, excuse me, was watching that. I said, well, Art, that's what you just did. Our son at that point in his life needed to be told, listen, we're going to change the channel. And we'd have to walk through the steps of, in 1 minute, we're changing the channel, and then do the reminder. And remember, we're going to change the channel, which you don't typically have to do over and over, but we had to do that with him. And then with situations and going away, there were the order of things. You need to do things in a certain way. We have, so those things that come into play, they have changed over time. But one of the things that he still does, for example, we're going on a trip in July, months away. That child has asked me every day, what airline are we taking? And what time is the flight? And I'm like, dude, this thing is months out. Why are you obsessing on this? And that is something he does. It's somewhere in there. He's like, and then I asked him, I was like, why is this so important to you today? He's like, I just want to know. I'm like,
and it's a full-time, it's a full-time job.
It is
really
incessant
is.
and constant. And he does stuff like that a lot. Stuff like that, stuff like he'll say something, and then we finally learned that he was waiting for us to acknowledge that we heard him, even if it was a very nothing comment. He needed to hear, okay, are you're waiting for a response. He would just repeat it over and over and over. And then finally I'm like, okay, dude, we heard you the first time. He's like, okay. And then finally I'm like, do you need me to acknowledge? Is that what's happening here? And then we realized he needed it. He needs acknowledgement from us about when he says something, even if he just happens to be walking through the room and just says something that no one knows he's talking to them. But you need to say, I heard you, got it. Because otherwise he's going to just keep. So every child, like you said, every child presents different things in different manners.
Presents differently in the classroom, but also, Meegan, it strikes me too, and Reischea and I have talked about this privately during many private, tearful, angry conversations, because we're human. We're also humans that have resources where, Reischea is able to, I'm able to work from home. Reischea was able to stay home with her kids. We've been able to provide in ways and still, trust me, feel like we're not providing enough many days, or that we don't know enough, or that we aren't enough. But there are also families that are working multiple jobs, don't have the ability to do what we're even able to do. And so you would see this, I'm sure, every day in a classroom setting. And also, that's just in the classroom. So tell us, I had interrupted you, but I want to hear how this idea then started to evolve for you.
Yeah, no, it's literally examples like both of you just shared, just over and over and over again. And so whether we use the word disability or special needs, I use them both pretty interchangeably, or I use different abilities. But one of the things that I was thinking is, so ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, exists in this world. And we've made great gains because of it. Like, people with physical disabilities are able to interact with their community and have jobs because they have this accommodation. This list of accommodations should exist in most buildings. But we don't have any accommodations for people with invisible disabilities. And so, that is autism, that is anxiety, that is PTSD. There are hundreds of invisible disabilities. And I think ADA is so important, but what if we make that bigger and expand it into invisible disabilities as well? And so that was kind of like what is the ADA for invisible disabilities? And I was at a conference in Chicago when I was teaching, and I saw a virtual tour for the first time. So like on Google Maps, where you can click through like a business and like see the inside of a business, or real estate, you can click through the inside of a house. So that idea, and it like hit me like at a soul level, like, this is it. Like, this is the thing that could really make a huge difference in the world. And I'm the person that's supposed to bring it to the world. And I just felt like, what if every business had a virtual tour? That would be so impactful for really anybody of any ability, but super impactful for somebody with a disability. And and maybe expanding that lens a little bit. Like right now, virtual tours are used a lot in the marketing world. Something that businesses have on their website so people can get acclimated. But a lot of times those virtual tours start inside the front door, and I'm like picturing a restaurant. It will show the seating areas in the bar area, and then that's the virtual tour. However, if you just expand that lens a little bit and you start in the parking lot and you show the walkway to the door, the entrance, the seating areas, the bar, and all of that, and then go into the restrooms, show the accessible stalls. You have then opened up this tool into something even bigger than just a marketing tool for the general purposes. And so that was like the day. Like I remember it like it was yesterday. Like I remember where I was standing. I remember who was standing around me. Like that was just my moment in life that I knew what I was supposed to do. I didn't do it right then though. I definitely spent some more time in the schools. I was a teacher consultant for a little while. I was an assistive tech coordinator, and then I was an assistant principal for my last 3 years. And then in 2017 is when we actually started Able Eyes, our original company.
Wow, that's fantastic. And that view, you know, your comment brought me to an article that I literally just read the other day on a grown woman with autism on a school board. And she was frustrated and she ended up suing, I want to say the school district, because in essence, they were ignoring the accommodations that she requested and needed. Because to them, it's like, what accommodations? And her accommodations were pretty simple and straightforward, but easy to ignore if you're not really paying attention. Her accommodations were, I need you to look directly at me when you're speaking to me, because I need to see your face and your lips moving to know that you're addressing whatever it is that you're talking about. I also need you to speak directly into the microphone, because other things tend to distract me. But if I'm clearly hearing your voice, it's going to draw me over to you, and things of that nature. And those things, she said she could tell after a while it was purposefully being ignored. So she took that step. She won, actually. The
Wow,
so it
that's
was,
great. I'm
you know
so
what,
I'm so happy to hear that it's
she won it,
coming
and
to the forefront.
she got she got like $10 literally. But she goes, I don't care that that's what it was, $10. She goes, because it wasn't about the money. She said it was about focusing and addressing and giving the accommodations to the person that doesn't need a ramp, to the person that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
need, a visual aid and or what have
Mm-hmm.
you, but for the person whose disability may not be noticeable to you, but it is very much there.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I mean, huge. I think part of it here is what comes to me is we talked with this with Michelle Hutchinson on a few different episodes on this podcast, Reish. The word empathy, being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes to imagine why accommodations are needed. And something I'm a business owner. I'll use the word simple on my own behalf. Something as simple as expanding that virtual tour to include the parking lot and the bathrooms. I mean, that is huge to be able to help people. I had the opportunity a few years ago to interview Olympian from Canada who is blind. And she really amazing woman. And she was sharing just conversationally, we were talking. We were actually talking about accessibility and websites because that's one, my company provides websites, and accessibility is very important to us. And so we were having a conversation about that. And she was actually saying that it's easier for her to go buy a pair of shoes like at a store downtown in very busy Ontario than it is to buy a pair of shoes online because of the way the websites are built, right? But in the course of that conversation, one of the things she said was every time she leaves her home, she is in a life-threatening situation.
Mm.
I mean, think about that for a moment. When
Mm-hmm.
we leave our homes, when the three of us leave our homes, we get in the car, we know we could get in an accident, but chances are low. We know road conditions, weather conditions, we're taking into account all of these things. I don't feel that my safety is going to be in jeopardy. I live in a good area of town, checks all the boxes. I feel safe when I leave my home. Every time she leaves her home, because she's someone who she is not able to see, and she has a dog, she is putting her life in her dog's hands to
Mhm.
leave home. And so if we think about that for a moment, that's a disability that we can see. We can look at her. She visually you can look at her and see that she does not have eyes. So like you can look at her and you can see she's got a dog, she's got a cane. I can see her disability. When we look at other people, I mean, people that you interact with every single day, you actually have no idea how many of them have invisible disabilities. It's just statistics.
It's
They are
huge.
everywhere. We are everywhere. I have ADHD. I mean, that's an invisible disability. Not nearly. I'm not trying to say I'm in the same realm, but just as an example, there are people around us all the time, and we don't know what their disabilities are. So it's one thing to say, okay, let's help this woman who's blind navigate the city. And what are the obvious things we can do? And I don't think there's a single person out there who would say, no, it costs too much money to put in those, crosswalk things that make sounds, like we shouldn't do that. Like everyone's going to say, yep, we've got to do it.
Mhm.
So when it
Mhm. Right.
comes to people with disabilities like anxiety, and I know some people are like, oh, anxiety, get over it.
No.
No, then you're not choosing empathy in that moment if you say that, and perhaps you
Yeah.
don't deal with anxiety that is crippling in the
Mhm.
way that some others do, like our sons, for example. But whether it's anxiety, whether it's an intellectual disability, any of these invisible disabilities, why would we not do the same? And Meegan, that's
Mhm.
exactly what Abilize is setting out to do. And recognizably in just one kind of small aspect of, but huge for people who want to be able to leave their home and feel safe. Because I know for someone like Colin, you want to know, like when you get to the bowling alley, where am I supposed to go to get my shoes? Where
Mhm.
are the bathrooms? What if I really have to go and I don't know where the bathrooms are? Like these are things that cause crippling anxiety that can keep him up at night, whereas he's excited to
Mhm.
go and he wants to try this new thing or this new place, but without the ability. And now all of a sudden you are putting in his hands a cure for the anxiety to say, well, let's map it out. You can know before you leave exactly what to do. And frankly, what I love is it also puts it back in his hands. Reish, I know we are constantly teaching our sons how to find the resources they need,
Mhm.
how to start using tools that will help them throughout their lives. Well, all of a sudden, here you are putting Abilize right into these virtual tools right into their hands, where now they can start checking every business before they go.
It's a form of independence. So Meegan, please tell us what's been the impact, the community impact that Abilize has had that you've been able to touch, see, and say, yes, this is working.
Oh, it's been incredible. We have so many testimonials from so many different avenues than I even expected. Like I have testimonials from teachers, general education classrooms of like, say, kindergartners, first graders, third graders, like elementary level. So as a teacher, I totally understand this. Let's say there was a trip to the Michigan History Center planned for a classroom, and this group of 30 students is going to just get dropped off at this door. They're all going to walk in the door and they're going to see, smell, touch thousands of new things, like this whole new environment. And so kids are just like, their energy goes up, and like the way that they deal with their anxiety is usually through like excitement and being loud and running around and doing things. But if teachers take the time to look at the virtual tours beforehand with the whole classroom, that level goes significantly down. We've also heard from like the community resources. So we work with several community resources. One in particular comes to mind. They serve free meals and food boxes. They have a kitchen. They have a clothing closet. So they have all of these resources in a community that's in need of these resources. And the reason that they wanted a virtual tour is because people don't just walk in their door and ask for help. Like, never does that happen. They walk in the door because someone physically said, I've been here, go with me. let's go to this place and get you the help that you need. And so by having a virtual tour, you're taking away the need for that extra person. And so some of the people that maybe need that help can get over the anxiety of the unknown and go get the help that they need for themselves and their family. And so it's things like that I'm like, oh my gosh, like that wasn't even in my wildest dreams.
How does this work? How do you partner up with these companies? How does it work?
Yeah, I mean, up to this point, it's pretty much been word of mouth. People just hearing about what we do. A lot of businesses have a variety of uses. Like obviously, we come at it from an accessibility standpoint. Sometimes for the businesses, it's for us, it's accessibility first. For a restaurant, it might be marketing first, but it's also a great accessibility tool. So it just depends. We go in and it's a camera that it's like spins on a tripod and has a whole bunch of lenses, and it takes that picture, and then you move the camera and it's a picture, and then we have to go back and edit those pictures together, and that's how a virtual tour is made.
So where do people go to find these tours? Is it on a website? How do we find them?
Yes, so the tours can be found at ableeyes.org, ABLEEYES. And I want to speak to that. The word able eyes, because we were talking about terms. When we were creating a name or coming up with a name, I wanted to focus on the able, not the dis. So creating something where people can use their eyes to get more comfortable or get acclimated with the space or find the accessibility features that they need. And so that's where the term able eyes came from. So that's just a fun fact.
Love that. Love that. So, wow. So basically, and like you said, word of mouth. I mean, is there, have you found yourself going to places and saying, we need to do something here. we need one of my virtual tours. Where's your boss? Where's your manager?
If not, I volunteer Reisch, because that was perfect. I've got a few places for you to visit, Reisch.
Yes, please do. Please do. I feel so fortunate to have started here in the Lansing area that has been super supportive and super progressive in the area of inclusion and accessibility. And so we had our starting point here. Now we provide services nationwide. And like Julie said, we've even kind of pivoted off of that into a second company. So it's been a wild ride and so exciting.
Okay, congratulations on being nationwide. That is amazing. I feel like it deserves more than a moment to celebrate, but also this new venture that you have, Able View. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so the quick version of this is I did a pitch competition that was essentially kind of like a Shark Tank, but it was called Tech Tank. So I applied to this pitch competition and thought, I mean, I'll give this thing a shot. I kind of have a tech business. So I applied, they reached out and asked me to be on their show. I had 3 minutes to pitch the idea of Able Eyes to them. And they said yes. Amongst 15,000 companies worldwide that had applied to this. And so they only took a handful of companies out of that 15,000. And so I'm super honored to say that we were one of them. And essentially, when we went into partnership, there was a lot of due diligence and things that happened after the original pitch. But once we, got to the point where we're like, okay, what are we going to create together? What is this tech platform that we can create that's going to have the largest impact on the world, that is most scalable, that can affect the most people in a positive way? And so they said, what are your limitations with Able Eyes? And I said, well, sometimes cost. I mean, it's not super expensive, but it's also not for every ice cream shop and every coffee shop can't necessarily afford this tool. So we were preaching equity of access, but we weren't providing a tool that was equitable. And so I said cost, and then also it's a boots on the ground service. You have to go take a camera someplace. And so we don't have unlimited people to do that. So that also makes it difficult to scale. And so what we ended up doing is Able Eyes had a map on it that had all the virtual tours across the country on it. And so it had pins and you could find all these virtual tours. And we decided to take that map and remove it from Ableize, and we created Able View. So Ableize is now just a virtual tour photography company, always accessibility first, but we're doing a lot of different things with it now, like recruitment, like so helping employers attract employees. We're doing before and afters with contractors. So we have this camera, we might as well use it for other uses too. So I'm kind of like opening that up with Ableize, and then Able View is, I like to describe it as the Yelp of accessibility information without the bad reviews, because that's the bad rap that Yelp gets. So we at Able View feel that we consider accessibility information, not a checkbox, not ADA. Like those are really important things, but that's just not how we identify it. And everybody has different needs, whether it's your kids or somebody that is a wheelchair user. They're looking for different things, and so certain businesses will work and some won't. And by just having that information, you can make those decisions quickly and easily. So Able View is the businesses sign up as on a subscription basis. They become a part of our platform, and they get a profile that they fill out that has a virtual tour if they have one. They don't have to. It could be photos taken with an iPhone. It could be a text information, a list of accessibility features that they just turn on what they have and turn off what they don't. And we're not pointing out what they don't have. And then just a place for people to ask questions directly to the businesses, also privately or publicly. That's up to the business whether they'd like to. We don't want it to be a negative place for businesses. Right. ADA already causes sometimes some anxiety. Like you say accessibility and they're like, oh no, that sounds like millions of dollars. And we want to like change the narrative around that term and just say, no, like this is a huge number of people in the population, like the number, because I was going to speak to this when you're talking about it, Julie. The most recent number is 1 in 4 adults in the US has some form of disability. Huge number. And of that, 80% are invisible. So we have accommodations for 20% of those, but we don't have accommodations for the other 80%.
Right. Wow. Listen, I'm wearing a t-shirt and can't really see it right now. I showed it to Julie earlier.
I love it. Want me to read it?
I love it.
Once in a while, someone amazing comes along, and here I am.
I love it so much.
I point that in your direction, Meegan.
And with Able View, I'm gonna toot your horn for a little bit, because Able View takes the amazing concept of Ableize and it reduces costs significantly. Businesses pay a very small minimal subscription fee. And with that fee, they get access to their own profile where they fill it out. You're not even, it's whatever they want to put there. Photos they take. So now they're not paying the cost of having someone come in and, the virtual tour, virtual tour, obviously, next step up. Let's get everyone to that next level. But for everyone, you've now made it equitable that businesses can create their own profiles and offer these photos as their own kind of tour. But that's not all, Meegan. Tell us can you share the next idea of how you are kind of tapping into perhaps volunteers, maybe even some with disabilities or otherwise, to help grow this Able View network?
Yes, I get so excited talking about this. So we are in the process. So what we have right now is considered an MVP, a minimum viable product, something in the tech world. So basically it's like a really inexpensive way to get started, like test out our product, get feedback from businesses and feedback from users. And then now we're going for the big fish now. And like, we know what we want to create. And this idea literally came to me on a yoga mat. I was doing hot yoga. It was before class. So I was just laying there silently. And I just like sat up and I was like, oh, that's it. And so with the way that we want to move forward is what we learned in this year is that businesses are very supportive of what we're doing and they want to be involved. Sometimes they get stuck in their own head of, I don't know what to put on the profile. I don't want to leave anyone out. I don't want to, I'm not sure. And so they sometimes either don't create a profile or they create a really basic profile with not a lot of information. And business owners are busy and that you know they might not have the time to create it, although they really only take like 15 minutes to get started. So with this next version, we are adding a contributor concept to it where people, I hope many people with disabilities get involved, but it doesn't have to be, can go to businesses. And if they don't have a profile, they can take a few pictures while they're there. You take some notes about their accessibility features. They can start to create a profile for that business, submit it to us, and it would be a locked profile on AbleView. We would reach out to the business and say, we have somebody that started this for you. Would you like to unlock it and pay the subscription fee? And they have a chance to edit it in any way that they want before it goes live. And then if they unlock it, the person that created that would then get paid for that profile. And I'm really proud to say that the number that we have in mind is a very generous number, and that's so important to me that this is worthwhile. Creating equitable employment opportunities for people with disabilities, to be a part of like building this thing is like so like I get goosebumps every time I even say it.
You've created a job within the creation of a job. That's sick.
While they're making the world
awesome.
a better place.
While making it
right?
a better place, and while showing people, no, don't get nervous about the term accessibility. This is what we mean by that. And here we've got the example. Take a look at what someone who just took some pictures and went around started for you. And if you want to build on this, then we can do that. And if you don't, okay, we'll go to the next person.
Yeah. And I think that coming at it from that perspective, businesses are going to feel valued too. So when that person creates a profile, they're obviously going to say, and sometimes people don't think about what their great features are, like curbside pickup. That's an accessibility, that's an accommodation that people don't like think of being an accommodation. But if these people that are contributors will already have in their mind, like what accommodations to be looking for. And so when that business opens up that profile and they're like, oh, look at all of these accommodations that we have, like we're doing a great job. Like I think that they will start to feel celebrated and feel appreciated for the efforts that they've put in that they didn't even realize was helping so many people.
Oh, Meegan, you are doing it, girl. You are doing it. Fantastic. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow. That is so cool.
Thank you.
I feel like I'm biased at this point. I mean, I've only known Meegan for a short time, but I love what you are doing so much. Any way that our audience can support you, we're gonna put links to you, all your links, all your things in our show notes, so that people can reach out to you, learn more about what you're doing, how they can get involved. Businesses sign up, get those virtual tours. Reischea and I can tell you hands down from our own personal lives how needed this is. And Meegan, I just love that you are sharing this hope, this light with the world, and truly making a difference in so many lives. And I can tell you, after that sleepless night that I had, this was exactly the conversation I needed to have. I mean, I could just cry happy tears at, knowing that all the ups and downs, with all the wins that we get as parents or people who love children with disabilities, there are a lot of struggles. And as a parent, those struggles can be heartbreaking and almost more difficult for us to live through than even our children when they don't know what they're even living through. Yeah. So Meegan, thank you personally for just all that you are doing to make this world a better place, a safer place for our kids to navigate, especially because at 16, he's only a couple of years away from being an adult. And so, our adults need it too. So many people, 1 in 4, so many people need what you're doing.
That's a huge number. It's 25% of the population. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, before we let you go,
done. That's right. We aren't quite done.
We're not done with you yet. So Meegan, we have rapid fire questions that we ask every guest on our show, no matter what topic we're talking about, who they are. These are quick, to the point, and we'll compile them at some point to just have rapid fire answers from all of our guests. How cool will that be to have this collection of women just fun. Sharing this advice? So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Question number 1, what is one piece of advice that you would give to aspiring women leaders?
I would say follow your heart. That was one of the hardest things to do, was to give up a very stable life and career. I was an assistant principal, had our health insurance, and I just had to follow my heart and do this thing that I'd been dreaming of, and it was scary, and I didn't know if it was going to work, but I have no regrets. So I'll always follow your heart. I have it tattooed on my arm.
There you go. There you go. Can you share a book, quote, resource, whatever, that had a significant impact on your journey?
I'm gonna have a hard time narrowing it down to one, but I'm in maybe two. So The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari was one of my first personal development books by Robin Sharma. And the thing that I took away from that book is we are going to have our last day here on earth and have one of two thoughts. Either I wish I would have done this, 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 or I'm so proud of myself because I did this. I'm so proud of myself because I did this. I was always loving. I always showed up kind. I helped other people, and I want to have my last day on earth be the latter. And then the other one is Jamie Kern-Lima, Believe It. Jamie Kern-Lima is I want to be best friends with her. And she started the company, the cosmetic company, and she had her book is about just following your dreams, and it's so good.
If you could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
It's okay to not fit in. It's okay to go against the grain. It's okay to take up space. You are worthy. These are still things that I'm working through, as an adult. It's just hard. I think, I'm just going to speak for myself. It's just hard for me sometimes to take up space and accept compliments from other people and think that I'm worthy of creating this huge worldwide business. And so that's just kind of something that I started later in life, that journey. And if I could go back and started that journey much earlier, I feel like it'd be easier.
I tell my son all the time, and it's quite okay to think for yourself without any question.
And if you ever need a reminder of how amazing you are, we are right here. We are right here to give you that reminder every time. You are very deserving of all the praise.
Oh, well, thank you.
Meegan, it has been awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. And that is going to do it for this episode of Think Tank of Three. But before you click away, be sure to hit the subscribe button.